blow-off finale where people fight, and that's awesome. But really, it was the storytelling that drew me in.
Yeah, Steve, let's give a quick intro here. What is it that you do at the company?
Oversee our digital and social strategy, not only from like when and how we do social media, but also the content behind it. We're creating original content on all our digital and social platforms. And that includes everything from YouTube originals to highlight processing on Instagram, Snapchat, etc.
So let's talk about that for a minute. How do you differentiate between the platforms and keep things fresh across the board there?
Yeah, WWE's platform agnostic. Like, we look at everything as not as like, we'll cut one video and put it everywhere. That's not how we want to do digital and social. As everyone probably knows in this room, everything is different from TikTok videos, different from an Instagram videos, different from what you consume on Twitter. So we try to think of everything individually. I almost hate using the word social. It's my really like nerdy take, is that we almost have to throw it out the window and think of every platform individually as its own separate network or channel.
I think it's no secret that it's a engaged, dedicated, loud audience, right?
Correct.
How much, I mean, this is for both of you really, how much as a brand are you paying attention to what the audience says? And certainly Becky, just as a superstar, how much are you paying attention to the fans and how they're engaging there?
I think there's two different audiences. The online audience isn't necessarily the audience that is coming to the shows, that is bringing their family, things like that. And so the things that those two audiences are into are very different. And I think you have to be in tune with both, and you have to keep your ears open, your eyes open to what's working and what isn't. But at the same time, I think of this as an art. I think of this as my art, my craft that I've put my heart and my soul into. I think you have to be very aware and very diligent about not consuming too many opinions.
Yeah.
Because once you're listening to everybody, you're not listening to yourself, and it's hard to forget what you've seen and what you've heard, and especially if it's negative. So I think you have to be very mindful of the feedback you're getting.
Yeah. How much do you guys listening there, Steve?
We listen all the time. I think that, to Becky's point, right, there's an echo chamber effect a lot of times on certain platforms, and you can hear a lot of reactions, both positive, negative, on the internet. But I like to look at how much time fans are spending with our content, right? Whether that's viewership on YouTube or engagement across Instagram, and look at kind of what the outliers are in that terms, because that can kind of also tell us what we should double down on, what we should create more of, and what we should be really communicating across not only our business but also to our executives as well. So we're listening, but there's multiple different ways to do it rather than just diving into the comment section.
Yeah, of course. So Becky, we're going to talk a little bit more about the personal brand, but one more kind of social question for you. How do you balance the personal life and the superstar there, right? You're a superstar, you're professional, you're a mother, you're posting a lot of it there. How do you find that balance?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's constantly a work in progress, and I try to keep my social media platforms to very much in line with what I'm doing on TV. So everything feels like it is one story being told. The character that you see on TV is the same character that is tweeting, the same character that's posting on social media. And sometimes, we bring in a little bit of reality, just like we do in WWE.
Yeah.
And so, but for me, I think it's important that I keep a little bit of me for myself and my family. And I don't like posting pictures of my baby girl too much because I take her everywhere, and I want her to be able to be free of any of that kind of stuff.
Important. Steve, during live events and live programming, it's an incredibly interactive experience, right? You have tickers on screens, polls, there's live chat going on, there's storylines that really get people buzzing. You had QR codes on screen for a recent kind of storyline that you had. Why is this so important to the brand, and kind of what do you see during live programming on social?
Yeah, we're constantly competing for people's attention. I believe our CEO, Nick Khan, said sleep is a competitor of ours. We always are looking for ways to keep people engaged with the brand, whether that's when we're live on air or it's when we're at a live event somewhere in the middle of the country. doing a show that's not televised. We're creating content constantly to keep people engaged wherever if they open up Instagram or if they open up Snapchat, they'll see the WWE brand or they'll see superstars. One thing we like to do is our superstars are really working closely with our team on the road, and the access to them, Becky in particularly, is tremendous. So we have that luxury that some other sports leagues might not have, of that we are co-workers with the superstars and leverage their brands and their talent to make sure people stay engaged, because we're fighting for their attention.
You know, it's not just wrestling, Becky. You've crossed over quite a bit. Cereal boxes, TV show appearances. What is important to you when you're looking at these kind of brand partnerships?
Would 10-year-old me think it's cool?
I love that. Yeah.
Not always, but like when you're on the cover of a cereal box.
Pretty awesome.
It's pretty freaking cool.
I would say
And so I think in the beginning of my career, you know, any opportunity that came my way, I was like, yes, 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 yes. And then as you grow, as you can get a little bit pickier, and you really start to think about, well, how do I want my brand to appear, or how do I want this to affect the business in general, or how will this progress the business? How will this progress me, my family? How will this be good for everybody involved? And so I think that's how I look at things, or how would 10-year-old me feel about it.
I love that. One of the things that's really interesting is, you know, for fans of WWE, is that it spans so many generations, right? It's not just kids, it's not just adults. And so the voice of the organization and the business, both on TV and off, you're tiptoeing that line of family-oriented programming, and for people who watched kind of in the 90s, that Attitude Era, that kind of adult kind of content also. So as a brand, how do you balance that voice? And I'm certainly interested in the experience also from a superstar perspective, but how is that balanced as a voice?
Yeah, so our broadcast partner is TVPG for Raw and SmackDown, so we have to stay in line with that, but we also want to be authentic, so sometimes it crosses the line as well. But from a social and digital perspective, it really, on the superstars, to make sure it's, to Becky's point previously, like staying in character, being authentic. And there's been moments where we've kind of crossed that line, but it's been in the spirit of storylines or promotion for event, etc. So I think there's guidelines that our team is very, very mindful of, but we also want to make sure we're coming off very like one-to-one humans to our fans, or else they're gonna kind of call it out and be like, that feels a little forced if it doesn't seem real to them.
Yeah. You know, Becky, what's the personal experience like, having played both the hero and the villain, the face or the heel for the wrestling fans out here? You've played both. What's the personal difference like? What do you like more?
Oh, being a heel is so much fun. You know, because I think human nature is we generally just don't want to like people, or certainly now, certainly that's Twitter nature. And so you have so much freedom in that you can do anything, you can have fun, and if people don't like you, well, I'm doing my job well, and if people like you, well, you're so entertaining, how could they not like you? So it's a lot easier, it's a lot more fun in that aspect. Being a babyface, I think I tend to naturally fall into. I think especially because, well, honestly, I'm not the greatest athlete in the world, and I think my story of perseverance has registered with a lot of people, a lot of fans. They can get behind that underdog who constantly has to overcome. But then when it comes to the business and wrestling as a whole, and especially women's wrestling, I feel like I can be of help by being a heel, right? Because when you're a babyface, it's all about you. It's how good you look. It's how do we make the audience like you the most. And when you're a heel, it's all about how do you make the babyface look good? How can you get people invested and want to see this guy win? And so I feel like I have gotten enough equity with the audience that I'm able to help a babyface, and then as a whole, that just helps women's wrestling when people get more equity and they get more exposure, and I think that drives the business forward. So I like both. I like being a heel. I think everybody likes being a heel.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't like being a heel? Steve loves being a heel.
You love it. It's my favorite part. I would also say, if you haven't seen streaming on Peacock, go back to SummerSlam from 2 years ago, 2021. When Becky returned, you kind of played both roles, and the pop of her return was so. I was in the stadium. It was one of the loudest moments of the evening. And then by the end of your appearance, you were yelling at people in the audience, and people were yelling it back at you. So it was really cool to see her play both roles within the span of, 15 minutes?
Less.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster. You've got to see a live event if you haven't. It's incredible. Steve, I want to talk about kind of brand partnerships and across social. There's influencer partnerships, there's brand partnerships.
Yeah.
Can you give a good example, maybe a case study of something that's really kind of driven results and been successful?
Yeah, we work really well with all the digital and social partners. Snapchat's been one that comes to mind really recently. They've been excellent partners to kind of innovate with us. WWE loves to be at the forefront of innovation. At WrestleMania this year, we worked with their new augmented reality team called Arcadia to put QR codes around WrestleMania access, as well as Cowboy Stadium in Dallas, to where if you scanned it on Snapchat, Roman Reigns would appear in real life in AR, and you could properly acknowledge your tribal chief on Snapchat. So they were amazing. They did a lot of that for us. We worked with them on where to place it at the events, but as partnerships go, we're constantly looking at them to tell us, like, what's your next big thing, what's your next big innovation, and that's one that comes to mind. TikTok has done some cool stuff with us as well, but that instance at Snapchat was pretty cool this past year.
Are there any brand partnerships, or we were talking about them before, were there any that stand out? What's the one that 10-year-old you was most psyched about?
Probably being on the cover of a cereal box. That was pretty awesome. But I loved being in Billions. Acting is what I did my degree in, and so I was playing myself. But it was great. They were such an awesome cast and crew. So and I was a fan of the show. So getting to be there and do that was pretty awesome.
You know,
also the Sports Center commercial.
Oh, that was very
pretty cool. Yeah.
We spoke about, the multiple platforms that you're balancing, but it's not just platforms. There are multiple social accounts also for the brand, for the fans, for networks. How do you go about balancing that? How do you go about keeping that fresh and original? And what's the differentiator there between things? Yeah,
the phrase we have on our whiteboards right now is just quality over quantity. I think previously in previous years and just where we are now in 2022 is just kind of look at what's going to have the best work for reward. You could have 1 million accounts. You could have a vertical for every different thing you do, but it might not be worth the juice, might not be worth the squeeze. So quality over quantity is at the forefront. It doesn't make sense for an account to post on a Wednesday afternoon. Don't force it. I think a lot of times in the digital and social space, the always-on mentality kind of takes over, but I think we've tried to coach ourselves out of that and really focus on the quality of it instead of being like, blast everything everywhere.
Becky, as a global phenomenon, someone who everyone's paying attention to on screen, off screen, is there a level of additional pressure that comes along with kind of the all eyes on you in the ring, out of the ring? How do you manage that type of pressure?
I'm a diamond, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, pressure makes diamonds. No. I guess I don't think of it like that. I don't think of it like that. I think of it as what's the story that I want to tell? Yeah. How do I want to get people involved emotionally? How do I want them to feel after this? How do I get them to care? And I think when your focus is on the job, on the task at hand, then it's a lot easier to forget about all the extra noise, all the extra pressure that's on you. Of course, when you're going out there in front of 100,000 people for WrestleMania, you're nervous, but it's the good kind of nerves. I think I've only ever not been nervous for one match, and it was the worst match I ever had. And so now anytime the nerves get me, I'm like, oh, this is good. We do good work with nerves.
There you go. Steve, I want to talk. Let's talk about that live experience, right? We kind of brushed upon it, but what's going on in the world in the back when there's a live event going on? What's the social team? What are they doing? What is that like? It must be just as insane sitting, with phone in front of a computer as it is. Well, not just as insane as being in the ring, but it's probably a really crazy experience. What is that like?
Yeah, I think we have two teams, a home and a road team, that are kind of balancing each other out from our overall programming of what we're posting and when. I think the good thing about social at WWE, and this is really true and something I wish I was a little bit more mindful of earlier in my career, is that we're not just off on digital media island making the hashtags and cutting videos, right? Like, we are ingrained with our writing team, our production team, the superstars, etc. So we're part of a bigger production of WWE. So we're running a million different directions to make sure that we can cover it the way our fans demand that we cover it. And it's kind of cool for me to see just the buy-in the company has had from how things have evolved to vertical video or how TikTok has come about. We are constantly thinking and programming multiple channels and working with superstars to help them build their channels as well. So it's chaotic. Our home team has the luxury of being behind a keyboard and kind of being a little bit more strategic, while our team on the road is dripping in sweat, running back and forth between backstage and up front to capture content. They hustle. So it's a nice balance that we have the luxury of had, and WWE for years now has put in the resources and made sure it's a priority for the company to do it well.
Yeah, and to that point, it's crazy to see how. I don't want to use the term inside baseball, but how inside it really goes right now. There's some original content, within WWE programming that goes deep, documentaries, all of this programming, always staying fresh. So it's always interesting to see that kind of behind the scenes look. And I think because of that, it's become this crossover phenomenon again, to use that term, right? What else do you think it is that makes wrestling now? It's not just sports and entertainment. It crosses over into multiple worlds. I think it's a great question for you, Becky, having come in as a fan, being a superstar now. What do you think it is that kind of crosses over not only to multiple audiences, but multiple industries and people kind of really loving it across the board?
Like I said, I think it comes down to storytelling. And I think one of the interesting things, I think it was Dana White that said this, like, if you can imagine a baseball field or something, I'm not the biggest sports fan, but anyway, you imagine a baseball field, and in one corner people are playing baseball, another corner they're playing basketball, another corner they're playing football, soccer, whatever. And then in one corner there's two people having a fight. Where's your attention going to go to? You're going to go to the people having a fight. Well, that's what we do. We tell a story through that, and using, everybody knows at this stage that it's predetermined and everything, but it doesn't make it any less interesting, especially because we constantly blur the lines. So people are like, oh yeah, that was scripted, but that wasn't. And so it constantly leaves people questioning. And then I think for the amount that we do, we're running 52 weeks a year, at least 3 TV shows a week. Sometimes 4 when we have a pay-per-view, sometimes 5 if NXT has a pay-per-view. And so the amount that we are doing, and it's all live. It's all live. We don't get a second take at it. We don't get a second go at it. We're performing high physical maneuvers in the ring while also trying to figure out where's the camera angle. Are people going to be able to catch this? While there is an audience of thousands of people watching us, let alone an audience of millions of people watching at home. There is nothing like it. It is a spectacle. It is energy. It is alive. And it is passionate. And I think people feel that. And they're drawn to it.
Yeah. Becky, you mentioned, you've got Raw, you've got SmackDown, you've got NXT. These are 3 completely different programs, 3 different brands. Steve, is there a different strategy per brand? What's going on when it comes to each program, your pay-per-views, all the different programming there?
Yeah, I think we're making sure we're, like I said previously, staying close with our production team, our creative writing team, and making sure that it isn't just copy and paste across every digital platform. Because again, fans would call that out and be like, you're just doing the same thing you did on Monday, but now it's Friday. So every brand, every match, every storyline, we're making sure we're being authentic to what's going on the screen. And as well as I think just the superstars on each show are letting us get a little peek behind the curtain. Especially down in NXT, they're developing their careers, and we're kind of following that journey, whether that's on YouTube or just like we have a series on Snapchat that kind of puts a spotlight on a name you might not know that might not be on the main roster yet. So we're thinking strategically on as well as like how the company is positioning each brand with our networks and our partners, et cetera, as well.
Is that important positioning especially for NXT, for those up and coming superstars that outside of the ring in front of the audience kind of branding? Is that something that's really important there?
Yeah, I think so, and you can speak to it. You were there, and it's a place to cut your teeth, like learn the business, learn how to be the personality that you want to become, and giving the superstars down in Orlando the reps to do something on Snapchat or to create a vlog for YouTube is something we're very mindful of and want to do more of with them down there.
I mean, the same goes for you, right? And you've integrated, and you mentioned this, you've integrated storylines within social. You're calling out people on social media. You are kind of having the back and forth right there. How important for you is that to the story and what's going on, in the ring?
I think it was a big hand in helping me rise up, especially when I didn't have a bunch of TV time.
Yeah.
It was a live mic in my hand 24/7, so that I could tell my story, that I could get my message across. And I was talking to Stephen about this earlier, but I was saying the currency of Twitter is the zinger, right? Like it's the zinger. How do you zing people? And so and people get interested in that, and they get engaged in that, and we're in the conflict business. Sure, predetermined conflict business, but it's the conflict business. And so people, when they see that on Twitter, they're like, oh, but that's real. She said the real thing there. And so it does help to drive a story. How does it work in terms of hurting people's feelings? People get upset. And so that's a thing, but it does help drive the story forward.
Do you have a career? I mean, first of all, headline WrestleMania, first female match, first women's match to headline WrestleMania.
Thank you.
Incredible. That is history making. Can we talk about a few other career highlights? Are there things that stand out for you?
Gosh, yeah. Well, that would be huge. Was a big fan of that one. I think any time that I've gone out there, maybe as an underdog, and or my match has gone out there as an underdog, and we've stolen the show, that feels like a career highlight. One of my most recent ones was WrestleMania against Bianca Belair. I didn't walk out the winner, but we stole the show. We stole that weekend, and that felt like an accomplishment. There's been many. There's been so many, and I've been so lucky and privileged that I've been able to be in a time with women and people that are so progressive in terms of changing the way that women are viewed in the business, which has been so predominantly male for so many years, and being one of the first people in the Royal Rumble, the first women's Royal Rumble, and having the first women's ladder match. And there's just been a series of firsts, and I think one is not better than the other. It's just been a whole story of how do we change the way women are perceived in this business, and that's been awesome that I've been able to be a strong part of it.
A massive part of it. You've completely
well, I didn't want to, pat myself on the back, but yeah.
But in which the women's division is now seen. It's taken incredibly seriously. There has been if you watch the product, there is a serious evolution of the women's division. Where do you see it heading? Does the future look endless now? It's incredibly bright. I mean,
I look at NXT, and this is no discourse towards the men, but I look at the women and I go, oh yeah, that's the future. That's the future. That's where the engaging characters are. That is incredible athleticism. Some athleticism that I never in a million years would be capable of. And I think you can see the interest in what the women are doing down there. And so I think it's the future. And I look at our women's roster now and I go, between me and you've got Bianca Belair, you've got Rhea Ripley, who's just incredible and is so young, and you've got Liv Morgan, and you have all these incredible women just getting started.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I'm very excited about it.
It's a really exciting time to be a fan of the organization right now. And we only have a couple of minutes left, and so to that point, especially with such a diverse audience here, for both of you, for the uninitiated wrestling fan, right? Maybe someone's here just to learn about brands or social media or something like that, with a minute and change for each of you. Make the case. What is the case for the uninitiated fan who maybe has some negative connotations or there's stereotypes associated with wrestling? What is the case for professional wrestling? We'll finish with you, Becky. Obviously, Steve, go on.
Yeah, I mean, buy a ticket, show up to a live event, and I guarantee you'll leave a fan, or at least with a smile on your face, and had a good night out. WWE's back here December 26th, I believe. Nice, nailed it. But I think anytime you go to a live event, you will get a new appreciation for these superstars and for what the spectacle that is the WWE. I could not encourage you more. It's a great night out, but it's also, you'll leave there with a new appreciation for what these people do.
I think I kind of said it earlier in terms of there's just nothing like it. There is nothing like what we do. Nobody delivers a show like we do. 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week, however many nights a week that we do it, and nobody does it on the level that we do it. We tell stories. We have incredible athleticism, showmanship, fireworks, pyro. It's everything. It's everything you'd want in a show. It's everything you want in a TV show. It's everything you want in a story. It's everything you want in a live event. There's nothing like it. There is nothing like what we do. There is nothing like the energy that we bring. There is nothing like the energy that the fans bring to us. And so to be in that audience, to be immersed in that spectacle, it's special, and it is a special community. We have fans unlike anybody. They are diehard, they care, they are invested, they pay attention to every little nuanced thing that we did, like the QR codes. Yeah. They're always trying to figure out, sometimes they know more than we do. And so really, it's just a beautiful community that I'm so happy to be part of. I'm so happy that I've gotten to perform in the ways that I've performed in, that it's given me a platform to live out my dreams. And I was just a little kid that was a fan of wrestling, that loved watching Mick Foley cut promos, and now I'm sitting here talking to you good people about advertising and branding, and so I love wrestling. Go wrestling. And now we can say wrestling.
Good things happen to good people, folks. Really, good things happen to good people. I want to thank everyone for being here today. You've got to check out WWE if you haven't. But once again, let's give it up for Steve and Becky Lynch.
Thank you.